there was a video that went viral this week featuring a 22-year-old Australian man by the name of Christopher Jones who went skydiving. Now, skydiving is something that really, really terrifies me. I know there are people out there that are fanatics about it, but what happened to Christopher Jones really reinforced my fears when it comes to skydiving. Now, he had been diagnosed with epilepsy, and unfortunately, on the day that he decided to go skydiving, he suffered a seizure in mid-air. Now, watch what happened. Take a look. So there he is. That alone was scary, right? Like, that looks terrible. So you can finally see him kind of losing control because he's suffering a seizure.
There,
So he's flying around.
I think when he goes upside, it's happening now, right?
Exactly.
Kind of hard to tell, but.
Now, the instructor is right above him with a camera attached to him, obviously. That's how we have this footage. And he attempted to pull Jones's ripcord, but failed to do so. Now he's getting closer to him again, and he's like, let me pull it, and boom! He grabs the ripcord, pulls it, and miraculously, Christopher Jones was rescued. Now, the instructor says that even if he did not manage to pull the ripcord in time, there's an automatic chute or parachute that comes out once you hit a lower altitude. So he said, look, I wasn't really worried about his life, to be completely honest with you. But regardless of how many safeguards you have in place, it's still a terrifying video. Benjamin, what do you think? Make your point.
See, it's funny, I don't see it as a video that just makes me think, oh, skydiving is really, really terrifying. I think this guy had a seizure in midair, and yet still was fine. Like, the worst thing happened in going skydiving, and yet he still was fine. And the instructor was pretty much like, yeah, it was, afterwards he said, he was pretty calm about it. He said, well, he was never really in any danger. They had the automatic chute, whatever. And they're trained because, I'm sure this thing happens not all the time, but they must be prepared for someone having a panic attack or fainting or having a heart attack or just freaking out and be like, I'm not doing anything. And then going, oh, come on, geez, put it. But also, that's not his first time. Because if you do a solo dive, solo jump, you have to have done tandem jumps, you have to have done static light jumps before you can do it on your own.
Right.
So he's done it a bunch of times already, and then this was the time. But there's the cliche that if you're driving, you're more likely to die than if you
go skydiving,
which is factually correct. But obviously, people are like, well, I have to drive. Why add anything extra? But it's like anything. If you go, there's the same chance of dying on a run than going skydiving, and people wouldn't think about that.
Right, especially if you are someone who is prone to seizures. A lot of people with seizures either don't drive unless they're on medication or if they haven't had a seizure for a long time. But I think it's cool that regardless of the risks, which I guess ultimately weren't that big if they had all these safeguards, that he did it anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty healthy, and I still don't think I will have the the urge to ever skydive or get some sort of rush like that.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I feel like life is exciting enough for me that the adrenaline rush that I'd get from skydiving doesn't sound appealing whatsoever. And so if I'm going to put myself in harm's way, it's got to be real good. Like, it has to be for something that is like irresistible to me, right?
But I think skydiving is viscerally scary because it preys on our natural, it goes against our natural survival instincts to fall to the ground and put yourself in that situation. Whereas if you go horse riding or swimming, you'd think, well, yeah, it's fine. But I mean, if he had had the seizure while swimming, probably in a worse situation than if doing that, because at least the guys there can save him, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm still not convinced that skydiving is a good idea. So here's the question. What's the riskiest situation you have put yourself in or you're willing to put yourself in for an adrenaline rush? Benjamin.
This is an interesting question because I was thinking, like, what is my limit? Because I love this kind of stuff, and my parents hate it. I actually went skydiving when I was 14 with the army.
That should be illegal.
So, yeah, and then afterwards, I was the only person who actually passed, and I was like, oh, now I can do it next week, and I can start doing it solo, blah, blah, blah. And my mom was like, this isn't a hobby. This is a one-off. I was like, okay. But I think my limit for me is things that I know are reasonably safe. Like, I know that has a very small chance of everything going wrong, and things which are regulated. Like, if it's a business, I'm not the type of guy who goes cliff jumping with friends in the middle of nowhere. That freaks me out. And like, I would do it, but beforehand I would be there checking, making sure the depth is adequate. Basically, with the calculator, making sure everything's fine, where everybody else is sort of partying. Yeah, and make sure everything's as safe as it could be before I did it. And I probably wouldn't be the first person either. But I think that's my limit, is doing something which I know is safe, rather than, or at least, there's a business around it or something, as opposed to just doing something on a whim. I wouldn't do anything which puts anybody else in harm's way, or that I could burn myself and scar myself for life.
Were you always like an adrenaline, did you seek the adrenaline, since you were obviously, did you always know that you liked
Yeah.
The adrenaline rush? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Last year I went shark diving in the Bahamas, and it was there's only 5 places in the world that do this, and it wasn't even it's not like in a cage. You actually do it like swim around with 8-foot sharks.
That sounds like a great idea.
And,
I mean, this is the kind of guy who really calculates risk, by the way.
No, the guys are like, we do this every week for years, and nothing's ever gone wrong. To the point at which they didn't even tell me, just in case a shark kind of maybe nudges you a bit, like what to do. So at one point, a shark was going like this towards me, and I just put my flippers up and sort of in its face, and then it kind of darted away.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit. And I was actually at that point right by the chum box with all the fish heads. So I was like, I am marinating myself in delicious fish juice right now. And the sharks are just looking at me like, you look so tasty. And at that point, I was like, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get out of the water.
There was also this one time where Benjamin, who likes to calculate risk, lit himself on fire because he got an adrenaline rush from that too.
But I researched it beforehand.
Yeah, you did.
It was the right type of fire.
Yeah. What about you, Mela?
So I am so far from being an adrenaline junkie. Like I can't think of anything that I've done that was crazy. Like swinging really high on a swing gives me an adrenaline rush. And that is good for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't think maybe it's because I've never done it. I've never done anything crazy, and maybe if I did, or once I have, I would really find myself being addicted to something like that. But right now, like you said, life is crazy enough.
Yeah, I'm not interested in adrenaline whatsoever. I mean, the feeling you get when you're driving erratically and you're about to hit someone, like I hate that feeling, right? Yeah.
That's a different feeling though, because I had that the other day when someone almost hit me, and I was like, and it felt horrible. I was like shaking.
It's the same feeling where like you tense up, right? And I just don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Do I like to take risks and kind of live a crazy life? No, I don't. But I do want to know if you do. So please comment in the section below. Tell us what you think. When we originally covered this story on the Young Turks, there were a lot of people that were upset with me when I said that people shouldn't skydive, okay? I'm not telling you how to live your life. This is just my suggestion. But I do want to hear from you. Comment in the section below, and we'll see you soon.